So starting with this, so if you see here, we just divided the various layers into backend commerce and AEM, with AEM going out to the front end. So from an integration standpoint, so there is a real-time and a non-real-time or a batch integration. So from a real-time integration, that could be things like, attributes, which for a given product, the price, or things like that. But in a batch integration, you always use your importer to import your products, metadata, and whatnot for your particular catalog for a given site or multiple sites as needed. So this is how the out-of-the-box connector from AEM works. So back in the day when they started this in older versions like 5.5, 5.6, they used to even create product detail pages for you. You configure the template name and whatnot. They will create pages for you using that. But then they stopped that in subsequent versions. They only import all the products into the eCommerce product nodes in AEM. But once the products are there, then it's up to the developers and architects and the service providers to build these product detail pages and then integrate using this. But what AEM also comes with default is the integration framework, which is not just these connectors and importers, but also components for creating the shopping carts, the commerce experience with users, authorization, authentication, all of that. But in my normal experience, users are not managed in AEM. Very rare you put all your users in AEM and use AEM as your authorization handler. I've seen cases where it's been hybrid in one instance. Another instance, we had a separate SSO for all the authentication purposes, and all the integration for personalization happened directly in the client context at that time, the context of after 6.0. So this itself could span multiple variations depending on the type of solution one uses. Sorry, any questions? Sure.
What is the advantage of having that advantage? You have the analytics to manage the user experience. You have like hybrid that can manage the experience. Why do you think that commerce is not great management?
Okay, let me clarify that. I don't think that is the place to manage that. But what I said was in a project, that's what we did. And the reason for that was the cart, the sessions are all managed in Hybris. So the cart session is the fulfillment process is handled through Hybris. Though it is a services layer, it's not a UI layer. Hybris did not have any UI in that project, but all my services are managed through Hybris. Hybris managed my cart. So all I did was my UI component, call the cart service in Hybris, I pass my session ID, and I get the thing back. And even the session ID, we kind of encoded it into a solid session ID, and that we ended up passing back to Hybris to get the session information. So the persistence layer for my cart ended up being Hybris. So I can add stuff into the cart, I can log out today, go and come back in. So Hybris is there with a persistent session.
Are there any e-commerce platforms that AEM works better than
So we work in a project with WCS Commerce, and another one we did a proof of concept with ATG. So based on the type of integration that we do, so if we say, hey, Commerce, you are just a web services tier to me, I'm not doing any fancy stuff with you, I can pull content as needed, then it works wonderfully well. The next thing is your import strategy. Do you want to import the entire catalog into AEM? The primary reason, the way I see it, to import is how do you build your navigation and your page higher content taxonomy? What's your strategy for that? So if my products are not imported, then for me to build my navigation, how am I doing it? But then if you import products into AEM, what happens is I had a scenario where my catalog was 250,000 products. And if you include individual SKUs and bundles and variances, it's even more. That import itself took hours. So you could see a few things. You don't have to import all the time, but then they had a scenario where if you are a retail organization, like you have your sale every season or every month or every long weekend, you're going to update all these products on a daily basis or a weekly basis in changing inventory, changing price. And then all these incremental imports, if you do from your PIN into your AEM, so it's all the author instance. I mean, probably the current things we can do, like offload into a separate instance for that, having a cluster and do that, but at that time that was not the case. And author clustering, I'm talking about 561. So we ended up using a scenario where we said, okay, we are using Solar. All the products are now pushed to Solar. I'm just running a service from Solar to build my navigation and build my products. So that's what happened. So even though all my UI is kind of going off of AEM, the scenario is I'm not importing using the standard importer from AEM. So this is still an evolving solution because the connector is going to evolve more. It's a very interesting tip, anecdotal information. For example, my first project with AEM in e-commerce integration was with 5.5 back in 2012. So at that time, when the importer did not have so now you see increment, there's a checkbox for incremental import if any of you have used the importer tool. At that time, it was not there. We custom built it. My team, another architect who worked with me, he custom built it with strategies together. We custom built that. But in subsequent AEM versions, I see that as a standard, basic feature, out-of-the-box feature. So that one is pretty cool. So if you look at here, so the runtime service calls are stateless. So if you want this unified UI, the best way is to make your backend services stateless. So in this case, you end up managing your session or whatever in Hybris or any other backend here. That particular thing is typically takes care of that. You don't have to do any custom state management magic. So when you are still in the manageable time frame, you do frequent imports, that means even if you have to do imports on a daily basis, this can work. You can optimize this by introducing your custom any queuing solution and queue whatnot, so it can bring in kind of do the background processing using a queue that will still work. But if it's going to be a huge volume, the other problem here is, let's say you get 100,000 products now, you need to activate them immediately because it's not going to be available in your public service. So you kind of write those nodes into your AEM and then you activate them. It's going to create versions. So it's a lot of things happening. So the JCR, so when we did that the first time, JCR used to break down a lot of times the imported stuff. So we introduced custom delay. So I write 10 products at a time. I put an artificial delay of 30 milliseconds, and then I started going for the next thing. So it got a long time on it, but now yes, Adobe, very thankful for that, grateful for that. They shared the connector code base with us. So even if, because the class that we had to override was not a service that I can, a custom service with a higher override number, it was not a service. So it was just a regular class. So unless I have the code, I cannot really override that thing. So I had to, so we reached out to the engineering team from Adobe at that time, and they were very glad that they shared that with us. That's how we did. It's the code itself is to persist the imported products into AEM. So what happens is if I'm getting about hundreds of thousands of products and all of them is like each JCR node is written in, let's say, 2 milliseconds, 3 milliseconds, and then it triggers individual versions created, and then those products are immediately activated. There's too much going on, and we used to get JCR exceptions at that time. So it was challenging, but we're all very excited about the client. It's always a challenge to manage that client relationship, because when the client gets to, they have an expectation of this is going to be launched at a certain time frame. This is my return of investment. But once that time frame extends, then the project is getting kind of challenging for us. So that was the thing. But what I can say though is, as of today, it's much better, because the product has evolved quite a bit. There are multiple feature packs, evolved into that particular thing. But still, when I see, when I talk to my friends, saying, hey, are you doing e-commerce, or how are you integrating, how are you importing? A lot of people are moving away from using the importer. If their catalog size is higher, they are moving away from it. And a lot of people, as of now, they build their own custom connectors, custom message-based, queue-based connectors and whatnot. So they started creating that as their own components. They use that repetitively in a subsequent project. So this is still an area, I think, where new things can come into play. Probably a few weeks. Yeah. I think that if you're talking about 3 years before to now, even a lot of people have moved into AEM development. There was even very less people 3 years ago. So now, from a capability and expertise standpoint, there is much more maturity than it was 2 years ago. So people have much 3 years experience now than they were before, so that a lot of people can build up the connector or tweak the out-of-the-box connector as needed and extend it. So both are possible. If you want to create individual pages, like I'm saying, if it's a relatively smaller catalog, so a page per product or something like that, you could still do it. I mean, the connector used to do that in their first versions, not anymore. But these days, a lot of people are doing dynamic pages. It's a servlet or a selector-based URL strategy people start having these days. And then it's a dynamic page. So the problem is that's where I'm not going to keep link this dynamic page normally as an author. So I'm going to browse or navigate to that particular page. Now, these product detail pages, are they all just plain vanilla pages, as in product information, attributes, specifications, prices, images, whatnot? They're all coming from the payment store and vendor, or am I enriching that with related products or offers, right? Am I doing that? So when you look at enrichment use case, there are a few strategies. Very rarely with dynamic pages, people can go and say, yeah, I want to drag and drop this component. So what they would end up doing is they will drag a component for off. Let's say there's a offer component, but what offer is shown is now based on most of the metadata. So I can create offers as separate in a separate content tree, like what we in 6.2 we have content fragment. But without content fragment, what we ended up doing was create this one-off page that it has nothing but one component, right? So you create those list of offers in somewhere. You don't publish them, but directly, but you associate metadata through that, and in the component it knows which offer to look, and when you publish this, they all get published by default. So okay. So before going to load, let's talk about one part, right? A product detail page. Doesn't matter if the user is authenticated or unauthenticated. If you see 98% of that page is cacheable. So probably the price, and if you have a kind of quantity or kind of pre-order, back order, that kind of information is, you can do an AJAX call to get that runtime and put it. Because I'm now caching that entire thing, performance, I'm technically not worried. And moreover, let's say normally to publisher, I have not, in my experience, I have not seen a public facing retail or any commerce site with one publisher. But two, the lowest I've seen is two, for example. But we also always put Akamai. It's kind of synonymous now, such like any new site you develop, that is going to be Akamai or similar or CDN, something. The other thing a lot of people are doing is to improve performance. But once Akamai is there, it takes care of it, like Scene 7 versus native DAP. So if you have your images are rendered dynamically, responsive to site and whatnot, more people try to go to Scene 7. But once you cache in Akamai, it doesn't really matter the way I see it. It can scale, but it's an added cost for the organization, nevertheless. The important thing is how many concurrent users in the session can I support, right? That's the thing. But since I'm not maintaining the users, technically in AEM, I'm not really worried about that, but probably in the future state, it's a possibility. So this is the modern web application. So like I say, like two variations are here. Where am I putting my Angular or Backbone code? So I've seen two variations here. One, my components themselves will have all those codes, and AEM will still be used as a component or a content services framework. So my component, I'm going to write all the AJAX things to even look up my page hierarchy to build all the individual components. So the dialog has my content that I'm keying in, but it's not like my Sitely or my JSP rendering that directly in there. So it's pulled separately from there. And there is, and there is this other case where authoring is kind of very complicated, as in I am using custom content import process. Content is entered in spreadsheets, for example. And I, like how I'm importing products, I'm importing that into AEM, creating a separate import servlet for that. And that puts my content into separate nodes. And then my services knows to pick that content to render my existing. So my authoring is not through AEM. But what that brings out is it's very challenging for the authors to kind of effectively preview my site in the authoring. So they have to blindly upload content and assume certain things, and then they have to publish and go into my Apache to really see how it shows up. But this is, again, another emerging thing. But what I like is in the newer versions, Adobe is not just giving you, for example, eCommerce has reference components, right? But in the Summit now, with their smart retail, there are these smart components like shopping bag and all those things they're showing. This more like dynamic media last year, for example. So there's more and more usable components which you can really reuse. Adobe, more and more of those, if Adobe is going to build and give it to you, then you may not have to get into this element of like, what is my framework, what is that? You see more like pure play drag and drop functionality in there, like Cognify for that matter. If anyone have experience using Cognify for development, you could clearly see that it's your framework, reusable component as in real terms reusable. So you cut down on your front-end development as much as possible. So that is still a possibility. But otherwise, any of these custom solutions we build, that is going to be challenging in terms of the overall authoring experience, your activation, how we are doing, your preview functionality, and your integration for the marketing cloud, whether it be analytics or target or whatever. How are we really doing that? If you are using DTM, fine. You don't have to do anything in the authoring side. You just go to the site after publish. You just put your tags as needed there. But if you want to embed tags yourself during authoring to have that and more control over that, then it's not going to be simple to do this. Anything I'm missing here? No? Any questions on this? So this is the other pattern, distributed UI, like I'm saying. Let's say I'm going to a customer, they already have Hybris and they built a few pages in Hybris, now they've got AEM. Okay, so I don't want to kind of throw away all the pages that I've already built in Hybris, but because I like AEM, I think it's more productive to use AEM going forward. Now, what's my compromise solution, right? So here, okay, this is a case where we built a site. All the commerce pages are already built in Hybris, and that's all fully functional. So we built the same UI in AEM for the non-commerce pages. So my product detail page, my check-in, check-out, authentication, forgot password, they're all in Hybris. But just the about us, our organization, contact us to start, that's the phase one of the project. That's built in AEM. Now, so from a web server standpoint, it's all one domain. But internally, Akamai standpoint, it's all one domain. But internally, in my web server, there's a separate virtual host to which Hybris is configured to, and another virtual host to which AEM is configured to. So because they are subdomains, we use the domain quickly to share those two things. So that works. But now, if I'm authoring and I want to see how my product detail page looks without me publishing and going there, how am I going to see? I had to create a custom proxy servlet. So what I do in the authoring mode is I put my proxy prefix. So for every URL, so it kind of appends to the proxy prefix so that this will go. It's the same. I change that value in the author versus publish. So in the publish, it's going to the web server. It can't handle that. But in the author, it goes to the server to fetch the URL that I see. So if all these non-traditional integrations, what we will, if we don't plan ahead of time, we'll discover these gotchas, and all these we need to plan for. This is again we encountered. So while starting the project, we were like, okay, that should be straightforward, but really it is not. There is nothing straightforward about this. So what we ended up doing was, even before activation, like search. From Hybris, the products directly go to my search engine, right? But I can search it, but my page or navigation, it's not showing up. I want to really synchronize that. So we did custom servlet. When they publish from Hybris, they make a call to this. So when we get the call, we know to run the incremental importer on demand at that time. So because that product is all, because incremental importer, you configure it to run every 2 minutes, 5 minutes, still run. But even within that, if you want to address that delta, you may want to trigger this. So now the product itself has a push mechanism where you can push that to this one. Still, I'm not sure the latest version addresses a delete. If I delete a product in Hybris, that delete does not come in as in the Hybris version. But Hybris is still not supported, I think. I think the latest version of Hybris is still not supported in the connector, the default connector, unless I custom build something. So those things will still, continue to cause some issues where we can override these things with custom solutions. So when you look at performance, we talked about it. So my final page rendering performance is very simple. I can do various performance tests to say how much time it takes for my home page to load, PDP to load, or any other page to load. But you want to look at all aspects of performance. So when I'm authoring, when let's say if my catalog is 200,000, that import is running and I'm not able to author now. So what do I do? So, and how you can address that. So this is when you want to throttle. You don't want to, because AEM, like the JCR itself, the default or the microkernels and whatnot, they don't have a native means of throttling the inputs or the write operation. Because you put 100, it will immediately try to write the 100 input. Or if you put 10,000, it will try to immediately write those. It will just choke the CPU. So that is something still I believe Adobe can do I don't know, some optimization there to kind of help this out. Because they already have the CPU monitoring scripts and memory storage monitoring scripts and all of that. What they have not done is they have not integrated that into these policies so that when CPU spikes up, they want to reduce or lower, slow down something. Yeah, that's our, yeah. But MK is much better than PM because Star PM was much worse in terms of it has so much stuff in the cache, and even after writing it into the JPR, cache still remains. You have to do the star optimization process. Okay. But the recent ones I saw that we trying to get a section, one of the sessions they demoed that they don't even call that optimization process, or they don't even want to call it compaction now. They want to call something else. But it's good. They understand the issue. They are addressing it, which is really good. So those things are still a challenge. You have to monitor it. You have to right size it the way I see it. It may mean you need to tweak some code, or it may just mean you may have to say, I don't want to do any real-time import. I only do later on. I don't want to do the import at all. I want to keep my product in my intermediate layer, like Solar or something. So you could have even if you have bigger space as my storage engine for all my products. So it's like, what's your intermediate layer if you want to go that route? And then like activation, so synchronous activation. So when we saw that products are going in a search engine, so my content has to go hand in hand with that. Otherwise, my gradient may have. That'll be a delay by which either I get a 404 or someone is going to access deep linked product or any page that's not in the navigation. And same for DAM. So if I'm doing it either a Creative Cloud integration or just my DAM bulk import, I'm getting those. That also is going to spike my CPUs. But DAM, we are okay because once you see that and address that with the DAM offload, you can upload all the DAM. You can do that. And then a lot of times the default option people start with is to use query. Even JPR, Oak doesn't matter. We had a conversation about Solar versus Lucene. I think from 6.0 it supports both. What we don't have control is to say which engine this particular thing should be stored in or not. Both are there. It controls it. We don't have very granular control on what gets stored there. If you want, you could set up a separate index for Solar. That's a configuration. But within this, you don't have granular control to say, I want this product to go into Solar versus that not, or this root node to go. You don't have any of that control. So, in my experience, if you are having, let's say, for a sample set of 1,000 nodes from a root node, query is probably better. I've done some benchmarking personally, so query returns faster than my, the node walking. But if I have 100,000 or tens of thousands, node walking is more efficient than my query. Even if I run the query repetitively, the query just fills up the cache because for the query to run, everything goes into the cache, and then because if I tree walk, I could control what I store in the cache. And while doing custom application caches, in my experience, what I found was all these EH caches, Google queues, and all of that. So there are caches like in-memory cache versus out-of-memory cache. So memcached, for example, it runs as a separate process. There are other similar solutions also. It runs in a separate process. So those kind of caches are more scalable than something that runs within the same JVM as my AEM is running. So that is one more thing to keep in mind. And DevOps, so how much storage you need and how frequently you need to clean up. You don't want to do offline compaction every 2 days. That will impact productivity of your operating team and whatnot. So you have to also include that in the consideration while you are talking about the solution. So this is again a custom comparison metric. So before we say which solution makes sense for a particular scenario, you could say which solution gives the most ease of authoring. So drag and drop, and I'm done. Simple. That's the most impactful authoring productivity. So you unified UI, the simple, straightforward AEM is there. The rest of them are not optimal. The one is better than the other, it's still not, because in modern web applications, I'm going to do custom, completely custom marketing lines at that time. And distributed, while creating, I can create marketing pages. I may not know how the product looks like, or I may not even know how to link those things because it's not even clear. So it's all still like one layer of complex. Translation. We didn't talk about translation till now, but if you have all your product nodes within your APR, and you don't just have to integrate in some AEM to your translation engine, either your out-of-the-box or custom translation engine. You can write they'll give you their connectors and you add a custom extension instead of just from the content. If you want to translate product attributes, for example, you could still do that. Whereas if the products are in hybrid and I am translating just my marketing content in AEM, it is still one level deep. You need to integrate two separate applications for that to happen. Modern web applications, they don't really care because they only worry about UI at that point. Everything in AEM or hybrid, wherever it is used, it's the same as the other one. And for content volume, if you have a lot of content, including product and marketing content, the unified UI, putting everything under AEM, it's going to choke sooner or later. It's going to get there. That's where the modern organizations really helps because it separates everything in different locations. You're primarily doing service integration, and that's one of the reasons many organizations want to explore that. It's still not a perfect solution across the board, but it has its merits. Activation is, if everything is in AEM, you do activation from one point, author, the publisher, and you're done. But if you have content distributed in various applications, then you need to synchronize that so that activation, difficulty of activation comes. In last sync of integration, we also saw that if you are doing DTM, probably this is not a concern at all. But if you are going more dramatic, you are going to preview. For example, you integrate a target if you want to preview that within your environment. The unified base is probably the best because everything else you need to do some custom framework to do A/B testing within your operation. And leverage AEM features. So, for example, we talked today a new feature, for example, the same contract, right? If you want to leverage that, using the unified pattern really helps you. Because tomorrow, if you have a solution and you want to upgrade, and there is this new feature, there's no way, you can't even leverage existing features. Forget new features from the next version of it, right? So it's going to be much more, but as long as you are cognizant of that fact and you prepare for that eventuality, it's still okay. Because you need to evaluate objectively what's the benefit for a given solution, right? Why you are doing this. And time to market. So this is another critical criteria. The client may say, I bought all this software, I spent so much money. I want you to finish this target in 3 months, 2 months, whatever. Some cases you may be able to convince that the right thing to do is to do this solution that's going to take longer than this other one. But sometimes you may not be able to. So at that time you may still have to figure out from your criteria which one really suits you. So it may not be not all easy conversations. It's going to be challenging, but all I want to do is bring out the objective information out there so you can make collaboration with a client objectively rather than like I said so, right? That never works. This is pretty much, this is the gist of the slide, and the next one, just the thank you slide. Thanks to Adobe, Artflex, and our organization to help organize this. And thanks to everyone. I think we had 40 and now probably 10. But